You brought your child. The hiring supervisor's voice sliced through the marble and glass elegance of Hargreave Estates like a judge delivering a sentence. Her eyes swept dismissively from Sylvie's scuffed sneakers to Alicia's worn handbag. This is a private household position, not a shelter. Alicia Whitehead tightened her grip on her daughter's hand, refusing to flinch. My sitter cancelled. I didn't want to miss this opportunity. You should have rescheduled. I couldn't, Alicia said quietly, steadying her voice even as her heart hammered. I really couldn't. The woman sighed, already reaching for her clipboard. We're looking for discretion and professionalism. This doesn't inspire confidence. Sylvie, 5 years old and far too perceptive, tugged her mother's sleeve. Mama, I can wait outside. Before Alicia could answer, everything changed. A frame toppled. Glass shattered. And footsteps, measured, unhurried, echoed through the room. Welcome to Life in Stories, where every narrative reminds us that courage can change everything. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our next journey. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? Let's build this community together. The interview room at Hargreave Estates smelled like imported lemon oil and unspoken judgment. Alicia Whitehead stood just inside the glass doors, her borrowed blouse already clinging to her back despite the air conditioning. She'd ironed it 3 times that morning, pressed the collar until it looked almost new. Almost. The fabric still whispered secondhand in a room where everything gleamed with old money and newer power. Her bank account had $47 in it. Rent was due in 6 days. Sylvie's hand felt impossibly small inside hers, warm, trusting, completely unaware that her presence here might cost them everything. Mrs. Whitehead. The hiring supervisor didn't rise from behind the marble desk. Her nameplate read Victoria Brennan, Human Resources Director. She wore pearls and a smile that had calcified years ago. I see you've brought company. My daughter, Sylvie. Alicia's voice stayed level. Calm. She'd practiced this. My childcare fell through this morning. I apologize for any. This is highly irregular. Victoria's pen tapped against her leather portfolio, each click a tiny gavel. Hargreave Estates employs household staff for some of the city's most prestigious families. Discretion and professionalism are paramount. This, she gestured vaguely toward Sylvie, doesn't inspire confidence. The words landed with surgical precision. Alicia felt Sylvie's fingers tighten. Her daughter was 5, old enough to sense disapproval, too young to understand why adults could be so cruel in such polite voices. I understand your concern, Alicia said carefully. But I'm here. I came prepared. I have 7 years of experience in private household management, references from, you should have rescheduled. I couldn't. The words came out firmer than intended. Alicia softened her tone. I've been trying to get an interview here for 3 months. When your office called yesterday, I couldn't risk losing the opportunity. Victoria's expression didn't change. And yet you've demonstrated exactly the kind of inflexibility that makes single parents difficult placements. The quiet cruelty of it stole Alicia's breath. 2 assistants lingered near the door, clipboards pressed to their chests like shields. Neither made eye contact. This was a spectacle now, not an interview. Sylvie tugged at Alicia's sleeve, her whisper carrying in the too quiet room. Mama, I can wait outside. I'll be really good. Alicia's heart cracked clean through. She looked down at her daughter, at the blue dress she'd hand-washed in the sink last night, at the careful braid she'd woven while Sylvie ate cereal in the dark at 5:30 a.m., at the scuffed sneakers that were half a size too small but would have to last until winter. You are being good, sweetheart, Alicia murmured. You're perfect. Sylvie shifted her weight, trying to see the framed photographs on the side table. Her elbow brushed the corner. Everything happened in slow motion. The silver frame tipped, tilted, fell. Glass exploded across the marble tile like a gunshot. Oh my God, one of the assistants breathed. I'm so sorry. Alicia dropped to her knees instantly, hands already reaching for the scattered shards. Please, I'll clean it up. I'll pay for it. I'm so Don't touch that. Victoria snapped, but Alicia was already gathering the jagged pieces with bare fingers, her vision blurring at the edges. Sylvie stood frozen, her small face crumpling. I didn't mean to. I know, baby. It's okay. Alicia pulled her daughter behind her, shielding her as if the broken glass might spread like blame. Blood welled on her palm where a shard had bitten deep. She barely felt it. No one moved to help. Victoria stood back, arms folded. The assistants exchanged glances. One of them shifted toward the door, toward security. Alicia realized with cold clarity. This interview is over, Ms. Whitehead. Victoria's voice carried the finality of a closing elevator. I think it's best if you... Footsteps. Not hurried. Not hesitant. Just steady, measured footsteps that somehow changed the entire atmosphere of the room. The assistant straightened. Victoria's expression flickered, surprise, then something closer to panic. A man entered through the side corridor, tall and composed in a dark coat that looked like it cost more than Alicia's entire year of rent. His presence didn't announce itself, it simply existed, and the room rearranged itself around him. He stopped. His gaze swept the scene, Alicia on the floor, blood on her fingers, Sylvie pressed against her side. Is there a reason, he asked quietly, his voice carrying effortless authority, why a candidate is bleeding on my floor? Victoria's professional veneer cracked. Mr. Hargreave, I wasn't aware you were. This applicant brought a child. There was an incident. I can see that. He crouched slightly, his eyes meeting Alicia's. Not assessing. Not judging. Just. Present. Your name? Alicia Whitehead. He nodded once. Then he turned to Sylvie, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. And you are? Sylvie, she whispered. Well, Sylvie, he said gently, thank you for staying calm just now. That takes real courage. Sylvie blinked, surprised into silence. Trey Hargreave stood and turned to Victoria. Let's start over. Sir, I don't think, I'm not asking, Victoria. He pulled out the chair across from his desk, Alicia realized, and gestured for her to sit. Someone materialized with a first aid kit. Another assistant swept up the glass with practiced efficiency. I own this estate, Trey said, settling into the opposite chair as if they'd planned this meeting all along. And I'd like to hear why you're here. Alicia's hands trembled as someone wrapped gauze around her palm. She forced herself to meet his eyes, gray, calm, unreadable. I've worked in private household management for 7 years, she said, willing her voice steady. Cooking, cleaning, staff coordination, estate maintenance. I left my last position because the family relocated to Singapore. I have references. I'm reliable, organized, and I don't make excuses. She paused, then added quietly, and I brought my daughter because I don't have the luxury of pretending my life pauses when I need work. Something shifted in his expression, not pity, but recognition. Childcare arrangements, he asked. I manage, Alicia said. I always have. Silence stretched between them. Victoria hovered near the door, her earlier confidence evaporated. Trey Hargreave studied Alicia, not her worn shoes or second-hand blouse. Her posture, her restraint, the way she'd shielded her daughter without hesitation. Thank you, Ms. Whitehead, he said finally. That will be all. Alicia's heart sank. You'll start tomorrow, he continued, as if he hadn't just stopped her world. Trial basis. Household operations and staff coordination. 6-month probationary period. Victoria's mouth opened. Closed. Sylvie gasped softly. Mama. Alicia's vision blurred. I won't let you down. I know, Trey Hargreave said simply. And somehow, impossibly, Alicia believed he meant it. She walked out of Hargreave Estates rejected by the system, but chosen by the one man who controlled it. Alicia arrived at Hargreave Estates 45 minutes early every single day. Not to impress anyone, though she hoped it helped, but because the 5:47 a.m. bus was the only one that got Sylvie to early drop-off childcare and still made it across town in time. She'd mapped it down to the minute. Wake at 4:30, dress in the dark, braid Sylvie's hair while toast burned slightly in their temperamental toaster, out the door by 5:20. By 6:45, she was inventorying linen closets or double-checking supply orders that previous staff had let slide. Nobody asked her to. That was the point. The estate operated like a small city: groundskeepers, kitchen staff, housekeepers, security, drivers. Alicia learned every name within the first week. She memorized schedules, noticed patterns, identified inefficiencies without announcing them like flaws. When the industrial refrigerator started making a grinding noise, she didn't report it to maintenance. She called the repair company directly, scheduled it during the kitchen's slow hours, and left a note for the head chef explaining the temporary equipment shift. When Marcus, one of the junior groundskeepers, threw his back out moving limestone pavers alone, Alicia didn't lecture him. She helped him finish, then quietly rearranged the task rotation so heavy lifting always had two-person assignments. She fixed a 6-month inventory discrepancy in the wine cellar during her lunch break. No fanfare. No credit requested. Just work. Sylvie spent those weeks learning a patience no 5-year-old should have to master. She sat in the corner of the staff lounge with her coloring books, legs swinging beneath the chair, speaking only when spoken to. She never asked for snacks between the schedule times. Never complained when Alicia's shifts ran long. "You're so good, Mama," she'd whispered one evening as they waited for the late bus home, her head heavy against Alicia's shoulder. Alicia had kissed her hair and swallowed the guilt like glass. Trey Hargreave noticed. He didn't hover or micromanage, but Alicia caught glimpses of his awareness, the way he paused when passing the staff lounge, noting Sylvie's quiet presence, the slight nod when he overheard her diplomatically redirecting a conflict between two housekeepers, the morning he found her in the estate's library at dawn, cross-referencing a century-old maintenance log to locate a gas line for repairs. "You didn't have to do that," he'd said simply. "I know," Alicia replied. "But it needed doing." Something unreadable had crossed his face. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. He'd nodded once and left her to her work. But respect, Alicia learned, was not universal. The whispers started small. Break room murmurs that died when she entered. Glances exchanged over coffee that lasted a beat too long. "She's always here early. Trying too hard, don't you think?" Convenient how she got hired. Single mom, sob story, rich boss with a soft spot. "I heard she applied 3 times before. Suddenly he shows up and she's in. Please." Alicia pretended not to hear. She kept her head down, her work immaculate, her daughter invisible. Then came the photograph. It had rained, one of those sudden summer storms that turned the estate grounds into a watercolor. Alicia had been reviewing outdoor event logistics with the catering coordinator when the downpour started. She'd run toward the service entrance, but Sylvie had been waiting on the stone bench near the garden gate, her small backpack clutched to her chest. Trey had been closer. He'd appeared with an umbrella, the large black kind kept in the foyer stand, and held it over Sylvie as she hurried toward her mother. 30 seconds, maybe less. A simple kindness. Someone had taken a photo through the kitchen window. By the next morning, it had circulated through every staff group chat. The captions varied, but the insinuation remained constant, asterisk special treatment. Favoritism. Something inappropriate. Asterisk. Alicia saw it when Elena, one of the senior housekeepers, left her phone face up during a supply meeting. The screen showed Trey's tall figure, umbrella angled protectively, Sylvie's small form beneath it. The comments below were worse than the image. Elena noticed Alicia looking and turned the phone over. Said nothing. The coldness spread like frost. Colleagues who'd warmed to her grew distant. Lunch invitations stopped. Her suggestions in staff meetings were met with tight smiles and non-committal responses. When she entered rooms, conversation shifted, not stopped, just redirected into safer territories. Marcus still nodded hello, but he no longer asked her opinion on equipment placement. The head chef stopped saving her leftover pastries. Even the security team, usually friendly, checked her badge with new scrutiny. Alicia felt it like altitude sickness, the air thinning around her in ways she couldn't quite name. She worked harder, hoping excellence would drown out perception. She arrived earlier. Stayed later. perfected systems that didn't need perfecting. Sylvie colored quieter. Alicia smiled tighter. And Trey Hargreave, for all his earlier intervention, seemed blissfully unaware of the poison spreading through his staff. Or perhaps he simply had bigger concerns than gossip. The email arrived on a Thursday. Subject: HR meeting. Schedule confirmation from Victoria Brennan, Human Resources. Dear Ms. Whitehead, please confirm your availability for a brief meeting tomorrow at 2 p.m. to discuss your ongoing employment status and workplace conduct expectations. This is a routine review for probationary employees. Best regards, Victoria. Routine. The word was a lie wrapped in professional courtesy. Alicia read it 3 times, her coffee going cold in her hand. Around her, the staff lounge buzzed with the usual morning chaos. Shift changes, schedule complaints, someone's birthday cake being divvied up on the counter. No one looked at her. No one needed to. She already knew what this was. She'd seen this dance before at her previous job, when a family member had accused her of theft before security footage proved her innocence. The polite phrasing. The neutral tone. The trap dressed as process. Surviving the job had been hard. Surviving what people believed about her, that, she was learning, might be impossible. Alicia closed her laptop, smoothed her uniform, and checked the clock. 18 hours until the meeting. She'd spend every one of them working twice as hard as anyone else, knowing it probably wouldn't matter. But she'd do it anyway. Because Sylvie was watching. And giving up wasn't something Alicia knew how to teach. The HR conference room was designed to intimidate through neutrality. Beige walls. Frosted glass. A table so polished Alicia could see her own reflection staring back, pale, composed, terrified. The air conditioning hummed at a frequency that made her teeth ache. Victoria Brennan sat across from her, flanked by 2 people Alicia had never seen before, a sharp-eyed woman in a charcoal suit who introduced herself as legal counsel, and a man whose title, Senior Operations Director, meant nothing except that he outranked everyone Alicia worked with. No one offered water. Ms. Whitehead. Victoria folded her hands atop a manila folder Alicia recognized with sinking dread, her personnel file. Thank you for making time. As if she'd had a choice. We want to begin by acknowledging your work ethic, Victoria continued, her tone the practiced warmth of someone about to deliver bad news. Your performance has been adequate during your probationary period. Adequate. The word landed like a slap after 6 weeks of arriving before dawn and leaving after dark. The lawyer, Ms. Chen, according to her nameplate, leaned forward slightly. However, we've received concerns from multiple staff members regarding workplace dynamics and the appearance of preferential treatment. Appearance, Alicia repeated carefully. Perception matters in a private estate environment, the operations director said. His name was Howard, and he had the bland face of someone who'd spent decades avoiding conflict. Our clients expect discretion. Any hint of impropriety, even unfounded, can damage Hargreaves' reputation. I haven't done anything improper. Alicia kept her voice level, her hands flat on the table to stop them shaking. We're not suggesting you have, Victoria said smoothly. But optics are a form of reality in our industry. The photograph of Mr. Hargreave and your daughter, innocent as it may have been, has created an environment of speculation that's proving disruptive. He held an umbrella for a child in the rain. Intent is irrelevant when perception creates liability, Ms. Chen said, her voice clinical. We have a duty to protect the estate's interests and Mr. Hargreaves' professional reputation. Victoria slid a paper across the table. Alicia didn't need to read it to know what it was. The formatting alone told the story, letterhead at the top, signature line at the bottom, 3 paragraphs of legal courtesy in between. A resignation letter. Pre-written. Predated to today. Waiting only for her name in ink. We're offering you a generous severance package, Victoria said. 2 months' salary, continued health coverage through the quarter, and a neutral reference for future employment. This allows you to exit gracefully without the stigma of termination. Alicia stared at the document. The words blurred together, but certain phrases leapt out like accusation, voluntary separation, mutual agreement, personal reasons. They were erasing her, rewriting her exit as choice instead of consequence. "You're firing me for being gossiped about," Alicia said quietly. "We're offering you an alternative to a more complicated process," Howard corrected. "If you decline, we'd be forced to initiate formal proceedings. Investigations. Interviews. Documentation. It would be unpleasant for everyone." The threat was wrapped in bureaucracy, but it was still a threat. Victoria produced a pen from her blazer pocket and set it beside the letter. "We need your decision today." Alicia looked at the three faces across from her, professional, impersonal, already moving on to their next agenda item. She thought of Sylvie in aftercare, waiting with her backpack and her patient smile. She thought of the $800 in her bank account and the rent due in 12 days. She thought of 7 years spent proving herself in rooms exactly like this one, to people exactly like these. "May I have a moment?" Alicia asked. Victoria's expression tightened. "Of course." We'll step. The door opened. No knock. No warning. Trey Hargreave walked in, and the temperature of the room dropped 10 degrees. He wore no jacket, just shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, his tie loosened as if he'd come directly from somewhere more important. His gaze swept the table, landing on the resignation letter, then Alicia's face, then Victoria's frozen expression. "What's this?" His voice was calm. Dangerously calm. Victoria stood. "Mr. Hargreave, this is a confidential HR matter, in my building. About my employee." He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. "What's happening?" Ms. Chen cleared her throat. "We're discussing Ms. Whitehead's voluntary separation due to workplace culture concerns." Voluntary. Trey looked at Alicia. "Is that accurate?" Alicia's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to smooth this over, to make herself small, to leave quietly and preserve whatever dignity remained. But then she thought of Sylvie asking, "Mama, why do people get to be mean and still win?" "No," Alicia said. "It's not voluntary." The silence that followed was absolute. Trey crossed to the table and picked up the resignation letter. "Read it." His jaw tightened with each line. "She's being terminated for optics," Victoria said quickly, regaining composure. "Staff complaints regarding perceived favoritism have created an untenable—" "Perceived," Trey interrupted. "Perception impacts. I know what perception means, Victoria." He set the letter down with deliberate care. "I also know what cowardice looks like." Howard shifted uncomfortably. "With respect, Mr. Hargreave, this decision was made to protect the estate's reputation and your own professional. Don't." Trey's voice cut like a blade. "Don't pretend this is about protecting me." He turned to face them fully, and Alicia saw something she hadn't expected. Anger, controlled but unmistakable. "Ms. Whitehead has worked harder in 6 weeks than some staff have worked in 6 years. She's identified inefficiencies you've ignored, solved problems you didn't know existed, and treated every person here with more respect than she's been shown." He gestured toward the letter. "And your solution is to fire her because people are gossiping." "The appearance of impropriety," Ms. Maddox began, "is based on what? A photograph of me holding an umbrella over a child during a rainstorm." Trey's voice remained level, but steel ran beneath it. "If that's improper, then every decent human action is suspect." Victoria's composure cracked. "The staff have expressed concerns, then address the staff," Trey said. "Address the people spreading rumors instead of punishing the person they're targeting. This isn't HR management. It's institutional bullying." He picked up the resignation letter again. Looked at it. Looked at Alicia. Then he tore it in half. The sound echoed in the small room. "She's not signing this," Trey said quietly. "She's not leaving. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can submit their concerns directly to me." Victoria's face went white. "Sir, I strongly advise. Your advice is noted." He dropped the torn pages on the table. "This meeting is over." Nobody moved. Trey extended a hand toward the door, his eyes on Alicia. "Ms. Whitehead." She stood on shaking legs, her heart hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She walked past the table, past the 3 stunned faces, past the evidence of how close she'd come to losing everything. Trey held the door. As she passed him, he said quietly, "You earned your place here. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." The hallway outside was empty, but Alicia could feel eyes everywhere. Security cameras, curious colleagues, the weight of institutional judgment pressing down like atmosphere. Trey closed the door behind them. The conference room's frosted glass blurred the shapes of the people still inside, frozen in whatever furious conversation was about to erupt. "Thank you," Alicia whispered. "Don't thank me for basic decency," Trey said. He looked tired suddenly, older than his 40-something years. "I should have seen this coming." "You couldn't have known. I hired you over their objections. I should have protected you better." Alicia shook her head. "You just did." But as she walked back toward her station, past colleagues who suddenly found their phones fascinating, past whispers that would only grow louder now, Alicia understood something fundamental had changed. Trey had chosen integrity over optics. He'd made it impossible to undo. And in doing so, he'd painted a target on both their backs that no amount of hard work could erase. The rain came 3 weeks after the HR meeting, violent and sudden, the kind of storm that turned city streets into rivers and made the old infrastructure groan. Alicia's apartment building was 70 years old and proud of nothing except its rent control. When the ceiling started leaking at 9:47 p.m., she wasn't surprised, just tired. She'd placed the usual buckets beneath the usual spots, listening to the rhythmic plink-plink-plink that had become the soundtrack of every storm. Then the power cut out. Complete darkness. The hum of the refrigerator dying mid-cycle. The digital clock vanishing. Just rain and wind and the sudden, suffocating awareness of how thin her walls really were. "Mama." Sylvie's voice came small from the bedroom. "I'm cold." Alicia felt her way through the dark, phone flashlight casting skeletal shadows. Sylvie sat huddled under 2 blankets that weren't enough, her breath misting slightly in air that had turned frigid without the heating. "Come here, baby." Alicia pulled her close, rubbing her arms. Sylvie's skin felt like ice. The landlord didn't answer her calls. The building super's voicemail was full. Emergency services were overwhelmed. A transformer had blown somewhere on the east side, affecting 6 blocks. Alicia stared at her phone, at the one number she'd saved but never called outside work hours. Pride was a luxury. Sylvie's shivering wasn't. She typed quickly before she could overthink it. "I'm sorry to bother you. Power's out. Sylvie's cold. I don't know what to do." She hit send and immediately regretted it. This was crossing a line, personal need bleeding into professional space, the exact kind of thing that fed gossip and justified hours' concerns. Her phone lit up. Not a text. A call. "What's your address?" Trey's voice, alert despite the late hour. "You don't have to address, Alicia." She gave it. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. He arrived in 12. Alicia heard the engine first, expensive and quiet even through the storm. She met him at the building's entrance, Sylvie bundled in her arms beneath a jacket that barely fit them both. Trey stood in the rain without an umbrella, water streaming down his face like he hadn't noticed. He'd thrown a coat over what looked like pajama pants. His car idled at the curb, hazards blinking. "Get in," he said simply. No questions. No speeches. Just action. He drove them to a hotel, not the Hargreave estate, she noticed, but a nearby extended stay property that had power and heat and rooms that locked. He checked them in without asking permission, handed Alicia a keycard, and carried Sylvie when her legs gave out from exhaustion. The room was warm. Blessedly, impossibly warm. Sylvie fell asleep within minutes, curled beneath blankets that smelled like lavender detergent. Alicia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her daughter's peaceful face, and felt something break open in her chest. "Thank you," she whispered when Trey emerged from adjusting the thermostat. "You don't have to keep thanking me." "I don't know what else to say." He sat in the chair across from her, exhaustion evident in the slope of his shoulders. "You'd have figured it out. You always do." "Maybe." Alicia's voice cracked. "But I'm tired of always having to." The admission hung between them, raw and honest and more vulnerable than anything she'd allowed herself at work. Trey leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You shouldn't have to choose between being a good mother and being a good employee. The fact that the system makes you proves the system is broken. You can't fix the whole system. No, he agreed. But I can fix mine. Something shifted in his expression, not pity, but determination. Stay here tonight, he said. Tomorrow, we'll talk about something I've been working on. Alicia wanted to argue, to maintain the professional distance that was already gossamer thin. But Sylvie sighed in her sleep, warm and safe, and Alicia couldn't find the words to refuse. Trey didn't just offer comfort that night. He offered partnership. Over the following months, something deepened between them that transcended employment. He showed up, not with grand gestures, but with consistent presence. He attended Sylvie's kindergarten graduation when Alicia's shift ran late. He asked her opinion on estate decisions that had nothing to do with her job description. He listened when she talked about systemic problems facing domestic workers, then quietly started designing solutions. When he asked her to dinner, real dinner, not a work meeting disguised, Alicia said yes. When he kissed her goodnight 3 weeks later, gentle and unhurried, she kissed him back. When he proposed 6 months after that, kneeling in the estate garden while Sylvie secretly filmed from behind a hedge, Alicia cried and said yes before he finished asking. They married quietly, with Sylvie as flower girl and Marcus as an unexpectedly emotional witness. But the real transformation happened in the estate's East Wing. 1 year later the ribbon-cutting drew modest press, local coverage, a few industry publications. But for the 50 people gathered in the renovated space, it was monumental. The Hargreave Training Center occupied what had been unused storage and guest quarters, now transformed into classrooms, a commercial kitchen, computer labs, and a bright childcare facility with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. Alicia stood at the podium, Trey beside her, their joint venture finally real. Domestic work is skilled labor, she said to the assembled crowd of staff, applicants, and curious owners. But it's been treated as disposable because the people doing it, mostly women, mostly mothers, are considered replaceable. She gestured toward the childcare center, where Sylvie was already helping younger children with puzzles. This center offers flexible training, on-site childcare, and advancement pathways. Because no one should have to choose between feeding their child and feeding their ambition. The applause was genuine. Even Victoria Brennan, who'd stayed on in a reduced capacity, clapped with something resembling respect. After the ceremony, as guests toured the facilities and sampled food prepared by the culinary training students, Sylvie, now 6.5, taller and bolder, tugged at Trey's hand. "Are you coming to my reading today?" she asked. "We're doing chapter books now." Trey smiled, the kind of smile Alicia had learned meant nothing could stop me. Wouldn't miss it. Alicia watched them walk toward the childcare center together, Sylvie chattering about her favorite story while Trey listened with complete attention. She thought about the woman who'd knelt on that marble floor a year ago, bleeding and terrified, shielding her daughter from broken glass and broken systems. That woman had walked into Hargreave Estates expecting nothing. She'd walked in with courage, the quiet kind, born of necessity and love and the refusal to apologize for needing both work and family. That courage hadn't just changed her life. It had changed the system. Marcus approached, grinning. "You did good, boss." Alicia smiled. "We did good." Through the window, she could see the training center's first cohort of students, 8 women, 3 with children in the next room, all learning skills that would lead to head housekeeper positions, estate management roles, careers instead of survival jobs. One of them waved. Alicia waved back. Trey returned with Sylvie, who immediately launched into a detailed explanation of why her reading group was clearly the best in the class. He caught Alicia's eye over their daughter's head, and something warm and certain passed between them. "Thank you," Alicia mouthed. He shook his head slightly. "No. Thank you." But they were both wrong. It wasn't about gratitude anymore. It was about what they'd built together, a place where a child would never again be asked to wait outside, where a mother's ambition wasn't a liability, where courage could become foundation instead of just survival. Alicia hadn't walked into that interview expecting a miracle. She'd walked in expecting only a chance. And somehow, impossibly, that chance had transformed into a future where no one else would have to bleed on marble floors to prove their worth. The rain had passed. The storms had passed. What remained was something steady, built to last, not despite the broken glass and whispered judgments, but because of them. Because courage, Alicia had learned, wasn't the absence of fear. It was showing up anyway, and changing everything in the process. Thank you for watching until the end. If Alicia's journey moved you, please like this video and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to choose between two impossible things? Your story matters. See you in the next one. Stay courageous.